Welcome to the second level of this project. And now we will look at how we can expand our API a bit more. Currently, we only have two endpoints. We have the GET request for books, which will give us all the books. And then we have the GET request with the ID that will give us a specific index in the list of books. But for this to be a real API, a real CRUD API, it must be possible also to insert a book or to update a book and to delete a book. So we'll be adding those three endpoints. And in order to test it out and to use the endpoints, we will use a program called Postman, which I'll show you very soon. And as always, I really recommend that you try this out yourself. Try to challenge yourself. If you have not already done so, try to make these endpoints with the post, put, and delete to update the API. Try to do it yourself, or as soon as you think you have an idea of how to do it, pause the video and try it out yourself. It's really the only way to get good at this. And of course, that is the only goal with this. It is that you get some good skills and that you understand what it is that we're doing here. But enough talking, let's just get going. So currently we have our two GET requests. And in order to make a POST request, we simply do app.post. And then, like before, we specify what should the endpoint be. And this I will put as /books. And notice that this endpoint and this endpoint, they have the same URL or the same letters. It's still books, but there's a big difference because this is a post and this is a GET request. So when we're receiving requests from the endpoint, it is important which type of request it is. So if it's a GET, we will be hitting this endpoint. And if it is a post, we will hit this one instead. So that's the difference. And that's why we can use the same path in the route. All right. And just as before, we will have a request object in our anonymous function here, which will be this request, and a response, just like before. And then I'll make my arrow and curly brackets. Good. So in order for us to insert a new book, we're going to need some information from the client or from the user. And this information will be part of the body of the request. And this means that on the body, we can get some information from the client. And we can destructure the body like this if we do request.body. And then we can extract some information. And the things that we are expecting that the user sends to us will be the author and the title. So title, author, and this Boolean that says if it's been published or not. So we will extract those from the body. And then the next thing that we can do is just to create a small object that will hold these for us. So let's make a JavaScript object with the keys title, and this will be the title, and the author will be the author, and this published will be published. And of course, we need to put in a name for this variable, and we'll just call this the new book and assign it to this. So now we have extracted those values from the body, and we have put them into these variables called title, author, and published. And then we use those variables to create this object. And you can actually make this shorter. In JavaScript, if the key and the value have the same spelling, are the same symbol, you can actually omit the key. You don't need to put in the key. So we can just do like this, and this will be shorter. All right. Next, of course, we will need to push this into our array of books. So we can get our array of books that we have just defined up here. They're just in memory in the server. And then we can just push our new book onto this array. And this way we will have saved it in our in-memory database. And finally, let's do a res.status. We want to respond that this has gone well. And whenever you create something new, then you use the status code 201 when it has been successful. So notice before we use 200, and 201 means that we have successfully inserted something. And then let's just do a JSON response with all the books, just so that we on the client side can see that we got everything. So now that we have this, we should almost be ready to post a new book into our array. Let's just check that our server is running. So first of all, we have to get our TypeScript running. So I do TSC and then dash and then the W. And now TypeScript, the compiler will start in watch mode and keep looking for changes. And then we also need our npm run dev, which is a script that we have defined in the package.json. It is this one, where we use nodemon to keep restarting our server.js. So when we run these two, our whole system should keep restarting whenever we make a change. All right, now let's try to make a post request to this route. And in order to do that, we will be using this program called Postman that I have right here. And Postman is awesome, it's free, you can download it, and it allows you to test out your stuff by sending requests to some certain URL. And you can log in, and then you can save your requests in a small collection, which makes it very neat for whatever project you're working on. And in general, when you are working in the browser, like we did in the previous level, and we were sending GET requests through the browser, we just put in the URL, the endpoint in the top in the navigation bar in the browser, and this automatically makes a GET request. But you're only able to make GET requests with the browser. You cannot make a put or a post by using the browser. And that is why we have to use this other program such that we can make post, put, and delete requests. So I have already started out and already created this small post beforehand. So I'll just click on it to make this video go a little bit faster. But you can click on the plus up here to create a new request, and then you can select the type of request that you would like to make. You specify the endpoint, and then you can put in some params, or you can put in a body. And a body is what we want, because that is where we expect to get our data from. So if you click on body and you click on raw and you click on this menu over here and choose JSON, then you're able to put in some JSON. And as you can see, these are the three things that we're expecting to see in the request body when we receive something on that endpoint. So we have the title, author, and then this boolean down here, which is true in this case. And now, if I click send, I would expect that this hits our endpoint and that we then insert a book into the array and that we get the array of books back. But when we do it, we see that we get an error, and we actually get back this HTML specifying that there's been an error. And if we look over in our terminal, we can also see that we have an error over here. And the issue is that Express does not pass the request body by default. We first have to add something. So in order for us to be able to use the body on a post request, we have to use something called JSON from Express. So we just do app.use, and then in here we get our Express, and then we do JSON and call this as a function, and that's it. So this will tell Express to start passing these request bodies. So when we have this line in here, then we will actually be able to grab the request from the body down here. So let's give it another try. If we go to Postman and we click send, now you can see that we get a 201 status. It was created successfully, and we have 3 books in our array right now. So that definitely worked. And the next thing that we would like to do is to make a put request so that we can update one of the books in the array. So let's go ahead and make that. And I will just copy down this endpoint to make it a little bit faster. So of course we change this one to put in order to make a put request. And then we also change the endpoint to be with an ID. Remember the colon here. And we get a request and a response. From the body, I would also like to get these 3 variables, because these are the values that I would like to update the book with. So we are actually creating a whole new book on top of the old one. So this variable, I'll just call it updated book, and it will again just be equal to these 3 values in an object. And then instead of just pushing the book, I don't want to do that. Instead, I want to find the book with the index that we have gotten from the ID. So we also have to go and grab the ID. So let's just go ahead and grab that. So we get the ID, and we get this from the request.params. And next we have to typecast this into a number, because when we get it from the params, it's going to be a string. So now that we index our books array with the ID, we can assign this index to a new value, and we'll just assign it to the updated book. And then I will delete this line 43 because we're not pushing anything, we're not adding anything new, we're just updating the current index. And then instead of a 201, I'll just do a 200. And then let's return the books again. So that should be it for updating a book. Let's jump over here to Postman and have a look at our put request that I previously made. So this is just very similar to before. We have put request specified over here. We have the endpoint with an ID, and for now I will try to hit the first index. So if we take a look at our small books here, it would be this book called An Awesome Book. So this is the one that we expect to change when we update index 0. And let's just give it a try. We click send, and we get back this array of books with this new updated book. So we have successfully updated it. And maybe you have noticed that we no longer have 3 books in the array. We don't have that book that we just created previously with the post request. And that's because every time we make a change, remember when we do a change in the TypeScript and we compile and we restart our server, then we lose everything, because right now our list of books is just in memory. We don't have a database. So of course, very soon in the next coming videos, we will be making a database such that we can persist our data and not just lose it every time we restart the server. But for now, it's just in memory, and that is why we only have the 2 books. And every time we restart or make a change, then we lose whatever we did previously, and we have to do it again if we wanted to. So that was the put request in order to update a book. Let's add the last one, which will be a delete request to delete one. And of course, I would again like to encourage you to try to do this on your own. Don't wait for my solution. Try to do it from what you have just learned from the post and the put. Try to create a delete request. Try it out, use some time on it, spend some time. It's worth the while. All right, but the way you do it is that you, of course, make a delete request after the app. Again, we would like to have a book, the books endpoint with the ID, because we need the ID of the one that we're going to delete. This time we don't need anything in the body, so I will delete that. We just need the ID from the params, and then we, instead of updating anything on an index, we instead use the method called splice. It is a JavaScript method on an array that allows you to remove objects or elements from an array at a certain index. And the index that we would like to remove is of course the ID. So in here we put our number, which is our ID. So this is where we'll start deleting, and then we can specify how many elements do we want to delete. And we of course only want to delete one element. So I put in a 1. And this is actually it. Let's give it a try. Afterwards, I will return the books just like before, such that we can see it in Postman. And if we jump over to Postman, remember the server just restarted, so our books are back to the default. And let's try to open up this delete request. It is again just a delete, and I have the endpoint here, and I will specify that I would like to delete endpoint or delete ID 1, index 1 in the books array, and this corresponds to this book, which is called Another Good Book. And let's see if when we delete it, if we get it back. We do not get this book, so it was successfully deleted from the array. Also, if we go over to this endpoint where we get all the books, if we try to call that one, then you can see right now in the running server in the memory, we only have 1 item. And of course, if we try to delete one more index, of course we cannot delete index 1 because that doesn't exist, but we could delete index 0 right now. And if we do it, we get back an empty array. So that was it for level 2. You have now expanded upon the API such that we have actually all the things in a CRUD. We can read and we can create new stuff, we can update and we can delete. So very good job on getting this far. I hope you have enjoyed it and I hope you have learned something. And of course, in the coming videos, we'll be adding databases and more stuff to make our app a little bit more robust and resilient towards getting wrong input. So we'll do some error handling and some input validation, but that's all coming in the future videos. So for now, take care and happy coding.